Welcome to the Liberal Buzz Show. My name is Denise Dorey. There's a lot to talk about. This is the last show of the year, and much has been happening in the cannabis community, which is worth mentioning. That, of course, if you've watched this show, for the last 11 years, I've railed about new cannabis regulations and cannabis being too expensive, and there's too many laws regulating it that are just too punitive, and the punishment is just to enable the 1% white boy moguls. You feel me? So the new cannabis regulations were finalized, you know, the white boy regulations, but they were stalled by court filings on both sides. The people who hate cannabis, you know the ones, and then the compassionate providers. So, you know, that the new law is getting more and more unpopular, so they can't really implicate the new law with these court filings. So that's what we're going to be talking about, because let me say this, it bears repeating. This show is called Weed Wars. This show is all about weed wars, and that's nothing rare about we talk about weed a lot on this show, don't we? So here we go. Unless we put this is one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. Now, unless we this was written by Benjamin Rush. Unless we put medical freedom into the Constitution, the time will come when medicine will organize into an undercover dictatorship to restrict the art of healing to one class of men and deny equal privileges to others. The Constitution of the Republic should make a special privilege for medical freedoms as well as religious freedoms. And that's Benjamin Rush, MD, medical director for George Washington during the war with England to have our country become a nation, and was a signer of the Declaration of Independence. And that document was written on hemp paper, wasn't it? They said cultivate cannabis freely in those days. So we've really moved backwards since the Declaration of Independence was written. We've got to take those rights back, because those are our values. And without those values, we're just becoming another monarchy or an oligarchy. You know, who needs a king and queen when you've got the 1%, right? I don't have to tell you this. So today, let's see, it was back on November 4th. Back on November 4th, Anthony Rangel, president of the East Bay Healing Alliance. Now, this is the guy who filed against the Bureau of Cannabis Control with the Office of Administrative Law, right? East Bay, it's dedicated to advancing and protecting the social welfare of all Californians by restricting the operation of nonprofit cannabis compassion programs. The Bureau of Cannabis Control is placing seriously sick and suffering patients at great risk. That's what's happening. I see people who used to get free cannabis resorting to alcohol and cheap street drugs, which are cheaper and not really that healthy. Sometimes they have fentanyl in them, and if you ever do street drugs, go to Glide. They have free strips to test this for fentanyl, if you know anybody who does street drugs. So you don't, because fentanyl is awful. You know, I got dosed with someone through a vape pen. It felt like fentanyl. It was yucky. I don't know how it got there. Ugh. So this guy filed. The Bureau of Cannabis Control is by restricting the operation of nonprofit cannabis compassion programs. The Bureau of Cannabis Control is placing seriously sick and suffering patients at great risk. We feel that the actions taken by the Bureau of Cannabis Control and state California legislature are unethical. Yes, unethical. And beyond their scope of statutory authority. For 27 years, Californians have fought to protect safe and compassionate access to medical cannabis for those who most in need. So if the state wishes to abandon those in need, they better be prepared for a non-stop fight. we will not abandon our brothers and sisters. And that was Anthony Rangel, the plaintiff, filing this, because let's face it, licensing when government takes away your right to do something and then sells it back to you, isn't it? Government, government made easy. Okay. So we got. Now let me tell you more about Anthony. And Section 3 of the lawsuit. Let me open. I want you to hear more about this. Now, Anthony. Here's his court filings. Let's see. Here it is, page 1. There. It's California Office of Administrative Law. Petition for determination pursuant to California Government Code 11340S. And the Bureau of Cannabis Control are the defendants, I suppose. So let's see, I can read it better on this one. Okay. On December 3rd, the Bureau of Cannabis Control submitted the final proposed regulations for the cannabis industry to the California Office of Administrative Law for the final certification of legality. These regulations only contain licensed categories of adult use, recreational use, non-storefront retail, medical use non-storefront retail, distribution, transport-only distribution, and micro-business. Failure to create a licensed category for nonprofit creates a de facto ban on operation of nonprofit organization without statutory authority. Following me? So, to ban nonprofit organizations. So the voted on text of Prop 64, which, nobody really bothered to, not many people really read it because it was titled just legalization. People took them at their word. They didn't know that there were actually more penalties and the stuff was going to cost at least twice as much. So the Bureau shall by January 1st, 2018 investigate the feasibility of creating one or more classifications of nonprofit licenses under this section. So that's what we need. We just need a class of license for our compassion programs. And see, I'd like to see people just, instead of, these places, these safe injection sites, where that's all good and well, especially if they have test strips for fentanyl. But it'd be good to hand them a free joint along with their, before they do their injection or whatever they, just make this stuff available, maybe put it on the countertops like, like candy dishes. That's in my world, I'm fighting for that, so let's do that. I want street trees to be cannabis. We need that. It would cool the climate, It's like in a poker game, you got to go high, Yeah, just ask for the world because we deserve it. It's our herb, and they took it away from us, and we're mad. We should, if you're not mad about it, we should be, because we all, everybody, whether you smoke this stuff or not, we have cannabinoid receptors on all of our organs, and the medical community refuses categorically to even research the endocannabinoid system in our bodies. And what it's looking like is that the endocannabinoid system is what prevents disease if we feed it the cannabis it requires. It's like a vitamin. You don't go without vitamin C, or you're gonna. I got sick until I started taking vitamin C. I was always sick. Now I take my vitamin C, I'm all right. So try it. Okay, and so it's a vitamin. Let's just think of cannabis as a vitamin from here on out. Okay, it's a supplement, and it's not recreational. If everybody did their DNA, they would find that maybe half of us are subject to dementia and cancer, and it's going to kill 1 out of 2 people are going to die from cancer or dementia, Alzheimer's, heart disease. That's a big one too, smoking. But I mean, just the natural causes is just from denying our system's cannabinoids. And actually the research isn't allowed, so people say, oh, poo-poo, but it's true. That's what's happening. So you know what I'm saying. We'll Google that. I don't have time. Let's see. Oh, not much time to Google the endocannabinoid system. I want to get to. Also, we're starting a Democratic club to take back our rights. So I'm going to talk about that in a minute if I get time to. I want you to join our club. It's called the Central City Democrats, and one of our mission statements is for compassion, cannabis compassion. So and I'm president of that club, and that's we're adding that to our mission statement. So you're welcome to come to our meetings. They're on every second Thursday of the month at 230 Eddy Street at 6:30 p.m. Hope to see you. You can. The next meeting is February 13th, 6:30 p.m., 230 Eddy Street at the Alexander Residence in the recreation room. Okay, so next, let's see, this is the part that really makes the most sense. Agency actions demonstrating that the department has issued, used, enforced, or attempted to enforce the purported underground regulations. Now, what they mean by underground. The Bureau of Cannabis Control's failure to create a licensed category for nonprofit organizations has forced cannabis compassion programs who supply medical cannabis at no cost to seriously sick and suffering patients to illegally provide cannabis products from organizations who have not been licensed by the Bureau of Cannabis Control freaks. I want to troll. I want to start trolling them. I really do. Well, I have been. I've been trolling them on Facebook. Just Google it. Just go on Facebook. I've been trolling them so bad, and I got like 30 people just loving everything I say about them, and you know, because we're all, a bunch of us are trolling them now. But I've been doing it for the longest, I think, because So this is what they're saying. All commercial activities shall be conducted between licensees, and licensees shall not conduct commercial cannabis activities on behalf of or at the request of or pursuant to a contact with any person that is not licensed under the Act. Now here you go. That's where it gets complicated. In the final statement reason, it stated that the Bureau has not addressed nonprofit licenses in the regulations. So they, you know, of course they haven't. We weren't at the policy table. We couldn't debate the issue at Democratic clubs. We were on the menu. We weren't at the table, you know. And they want your whole Social Security check. They don't mind. I went in front of them, gave public comment to the Board of Supervisors Rules and Regulations Committee in front of all the dispensary owners, you know. And I was one of the first people to talk, and I read that Benjamin Rush statement about, you know, an underground dictatorship. Yeah. And, you know, it was a mic drop moment. You know, I talked longer than I was supposed to, and nobody stopped me, you know. So but we need more of us yelling at them, you know, and so help us, please. In the next year, I'll be, you know, sounding the alert to how to get involved, because one of them is join our Democratic club, and it's called the Central City Democrats. The Central City Democrats. Let's get to that. This other, we'll see what happens with this court filing. I don't have much time left. The Central City Democrats, we have, and in a future show we're going to talk about property rights too. The Central City Democrats, their mission statement, and we're changing it too. We thought we were going to have to change the name, but now we're allowed to use the name Central City Democrats, so we're going to keep it that name. And okay, just look for them on Facebook. I don't think I have it with me. The bylaws, yeah, that's okay. So now there's another thing about property confiscation. That's going to be on the next show. So, but the Central City Democrats are going to take up this issue. So that we don't, because no other Democratic club is. No other Democratic club is handling compassion except the Central City Democrats, not the Latino Democrats, not the African American Democratic Club, not the, I wish, you know, please do though. If you are, please correct me. We've got the South Beach Democrats. We've got the Harvey Milk Club. They won't support it either. Compassion, they, you know, it's just not part of their mission statement, not part of their agenda. So the Central City Democrats will be reconvening like on February the 13th for more information. Now, November 2nd, Anthony Rangel issued public records request to the Bureau of Cannabis Control pursuant to California Public Records for all the documents pertaining to California Prop 64. And guess what? He, let's see, where was I? Okay, I'll look at it. It's a smaller print on here. Okay. The legal basis for believing that the alleged underground regulations are regulations as defined in section 11.342. You know what I'm saying? 11.342 of the government code, and that no express statutory exemption to the requirements of the APA. What's the APA? The challenged underground regulations satisfy the legal definition of regulation and are not exempt from APA requirements. So I'm not sure what that means. Defines a regulation. The APA defines a regulation. So this isn't the part I was, okay. Now this was filed, okay, here we go. Issue number 2, the due process. We're not getting due process here. Licensed cannabis, medical cannabis retail cultivation. We're not allowed to cultivate our own medicine anymore. That's the thing. We can't grow outside. A bunch of control freaks. So if we have to be in possession of valid state-issued marijuana identification. You know, I didn't even bother to get that silly card. I didn't bother. I'm not gonna. Why bother? I'd rather just buy it in the alley. I'm tired of them. I'm not going to give any money. I'm boycotting. This is just overregulated. California Prop 64 did not contain verbiage to repeal and or replace any portion of the Compassionate Use Act. So that, you know, nothing in the section. So they just ignored us, basically. So we do have legal standing to, and really I hope we win. I really do. We didn't get due process for nonprofit compassion groups because Prop 64 dictated that the feasibility determination shall be made in consultation with the relevant licensing agencies and representatives of local jurisdictions which issue temporary licenses pursuant to Subdivision B. And that's down here. Subdivision B. Oh, I just read it to you. Subdivision B was on the page here. Anyway, so from any municipality, because there is no license, it's impossible for any nonprofit groups to obtain licensing from any municipality because there's no license category to issue a local permit for under proposed regulations by the Bureau of Cannabis Control freaks. That's not their name. But since '91, since San Francisco voters passed Prop P with 80% of the vote. So that's pretty much a mandate, isn't it? Of the vote, one of the primary sources of medical cannabis for seriously sick and suffering medical cannabis patients has been nonprofit compassionate programs and groups. So in 1992, so this was way before I was still buying it at Dolores Park back then. I had to pay a big fine because I didn't want to snitch people off for selling me the stuff and we all got caught. And so I'd rather just pay the fine. Don't rat people out. If you have to buy it off the street, pay the fine or just protest. Don't pay the fine. Tell them to go to hell and teach religion. That's up to you. Okay, so let me tell you, we've got an uphill battle, and it's going to take all of us to fix this problem. And I really appreciate you tuning in. And remember, this is really scary. California has the highest murder rate by police. So remember that. California, 182 people. You know, it's just, look at that chart. It's just horrible. So let's just, I'm just going to end on that note.
We sell the sales out for a price, millions much for years until we die. Every gender, every race, class is what you fit into, yeah. You thought you were above the problems that you thought you never